Hello everyone, it's Silver. This is the Last Alchemist. So this is something that's kind of like, if you bear with me for a minute here, sort of like a reverse automation game. Because if you look at a game like Satisfactory or Factorio, the point of them is to start out with something inconvenient and then make it more convenient over time with automation. You know, you'll start out mining things by hand, but eventually you'll have a whole system of extractors and forges and conveyor belts and stuff doing everything for you automatically. Well, this game is sort of the opposite of that. You start out with a very simple task, and then you make it more complex over time by adding extra steps to it. And they're all steps that you have to do manually. There isn't any form of automation in this game. But the idea, like I said, starts out pretty simple. You are an alchemist, probably the last one, and your job is to figure out a cure for yourself because you are dying of an unspecified illness, and you don't have all that long left. Now, that doesn't mean the game is timed. As far as I can tell, it's not timed, but it does mean that you do have a sort of an overarching goal to find the cure for this mysterious disease. And the main way that you solve all of your problems, both in terms of this overarching goal of finding a cure, but also all of your smaller day-to-day problems, it's all through alchemy, and it's all based on this system of essences. So an essence in this game is, it kind of looks like a colorful Tetris piece, but in very non-standard sizes and shapes. Every different kind of material that you can find in the world, from fruits and mushrooms and minerals of various kinds and all the other exotic ingredients you might come across, they all have an essence that they provide, and you can at any point just walk into your workshop and plop them into an essence extractor, which will take a certain amount of time out of the day and will give you a couple of those essences in return. You'll then store those essences in your inventory or on a rack for storage purposes because you do have a limited inventory space and you'll need a lot of it to go out and gather new stuff to extract essences from and things, so you can build all sorts of different kinds of storage shelves and racks and things in your home area. Your home is an observatory in this case, and you can build quite a lot of different sorts of furniture in it actually, but you'll start out with just, your basic storage rack and an extractor machine and then a machine to combine essences, and that's basically it. But as you go through the game, you'll be able to, build more grinders so that you can get more essences more quickly, and also some other more advanced machines that allow you to process stuff into new forms that you might need as part of ingredients for other things. Now, if you look at one of the essences, you'll notice that it has little notches on certain parts of it. It's also made of blocks of a specific color, and all this is very important. All of these notches are places where other essences can connect to that one, because pretty much everything in this game is made by melding multiple essences together. So you need to know what sort of shapes they can make by connecting them together in your essence combiner machine in order to actually make a specific compound that has the qualities that you're looking for. You also will get a microscope early on that allows you to plop in any different kind of just material in there, and it will tell you what it can make. So you can track the various bits of what you have in order to make some of the more complex compounds, because some of them can be like 3 or 4 essences put together. Whenever you're looking for a compound, you can look in your alchemy journal and it'll show you what you need to make it, and there are a couple of different ways. All of them will tell you a specific number of different colored bits that you'll need to actually make it. It'll say, you need 4 green bits and 3 red bits. That means you've got to look around for some essences you can extract from things that have that number, and it has to be the exact number most of the time. There are a few of them that'll say like from 3 to 8 or something like that, but a lot of them give you a strict limit instead, so you've got to make sure to get essences that match the exact number of each color of block that you need. So if you've got like that classic L-shaped Tetris piece made of red blocks, then there'll be 4 red. So if you need something that requires 4 red, then that would be a good essence to start with. But this also is determined by shape, because some of the compounds you can make just give you a number of colors that you have to achieve, and the exact shape doesn't matter at all, just as long as the compound has that exact number. But others are a little bit more finicky, and they require not only a specific number of colors, but also a specific ending shape that you have to meet. So for those, you'll have to take a look at the shape in your journal. It'll be sort of a black silhouette that'll show you the general shape you're looking for, and then you gotta look around at the different numbers of colors that you need and figure out which of the essences you have or can get, if you may need to go out into the world and get some new materials first, but which of the essences you can find that will have that number of colors while also being able to theoretically form that shape if they combine together. This means the alchemy system, the core of the game, is much more of a puzzle mechanic than an alchemy system usually is. Rather than being like an RPG crafting alchemy, it's a complete puzzle game sort. Now at first, you might not get the exact result you're looking for because the different attachment points, those little notches on each of the essences, there are often several different ones on each essence you're combining, which means there may be a couple of different ways they could theoretically combine. They're not necessarily limited to just one shape. Essences will not rotate when you combine them, but they can still attach to all the various different notched points. So you may need to combine two different essences multiple times in order to get them to form a very specific shape that you're looking for, but there's a blueprint system in this game that allows you to have blueprints in your journal and then just drag them as a page to the machine that you're using at that time to make sure the machine does that specific thing. So if you put both of those essences in your microscope and get their shapes and essences fully mapped out, then you'll be able to actually choose, okay, this particular way that they can go together is the one I want. So you can drag that as a blueprint to your essence combiner, and then as long as you put those two essences in it, it will guarantee to make that shape rather than you having to sort of hope you get the right one. This is also how all other crafting stations work. You will put a blueprint of what you want to make, and then it will give you a silhouette of the various items you need, which you then grab and drop just using your mouse. Just drag and drop them onto the machine until you fill up all the slots, and it will make what it wants. This is how it works for building blueprints when you're making new furniture or machines, and this is also how it works for the other kinds of machines when they're refining or creating new materials. There's also the inspiration mechanic that you got to be aware of. There's a sort of a currency/material called inspiration that you can get just by going around and finding new stuff. You have a sort of alchemist's eye that you can use to scan new materials, and it will show you a preview of the essences that can be extracted from them at the grinder. Doing this will also save that material in your journal so that you can look through it and look at all the different shapes of essences that you've come across so far. Whenever you've got a new material you need to make that you're not sure about how to make that shape, you can just, go through your journal and look through everything you've scanned and think, oh, I bet that would do it. But while you're going out and scanning things, you'll get this inspiration building up as you do it. You'll also get inspiration from just finding these story moments, these sort of big memory points and things that will give you a large chunk of inspiration, as well as progressing some personal storylines or maybe some side quests for some of the other adorable mushroom people that you can meet and do quests for and things too. And there's also a machine at the observatory that allows you to just pop unwanted materials into it, and they'll return a certain amount of inspiration directly to you, so that if you're maybe harvesting some rare stuff that you don't currently need, you've got a bunch of those essences already stored or something, you can get some inspiration this way. And you use inspiration on several things. For one, you need it to make new materials and tools in your various machines that you have. So whenever you're refining something, or you need to make some paper or some cloth or something like that that's a little bit more advanced than just a basic thing you can find in the world, then it's going to take some of this as a cost to make it. Also, whenever you're making new furniture or new machines for your workshop, that takes a ton of it, so you need a lot of it for those. And also, whenever you want to use your microscope to scan stuff that you already have in order to get better and more specific recipes for it and stuff, that takes inspiration as well. You have to spend some of it to actually sort of scan in those materials, but you have the convenience after doing it of being able to find those various recipes in your journal and actually use them to guarantee specific results. So there's a reason that you might want to spend all of your inspiration on this machine, because hey, it helps you find better ways to use all the different essences you already have. And the other major mechanic of the game is actually the exploration and gathering itself, because at first you'll just be gathering things with your basic gathering tool, a sort of hook, like a staff thing. And it allows you to gather your more basic materials like webs and small mushrooms and other plants and things like that. But when you start to need more advanced materials, and also materials that are farther away from the observatory and harder to reach areas of the world, for these you will need to actually go back to your alchemy dungeon and craft some specific essences or compounds that have certain characteristics. So you have this spray bottle that you can get that you put an essence in, or rather a finished compound in, and you then spray it, and whatever it does, whatever characteristic it has, it'll apply to whatever you spray it on. And this is how you open up new areas of the world and harvest the more advanced materials. You may, for instance, come across an area that's overgrown with vines that you can't pass, so you need a cutting essence or a harvesting essence. So you got to learn how to make that particular alchemical essence and then make it, put it in your sprayer, and spray it on the vines to get rid of them. And this is also the case with a lot of the other more advanced things to harvest, like a lot of minerals and things like that tend to have really specific compounds you need to create in order to even harvest them at all, like a highly corrosive compound or an explosive one or one that oxidizes things, and stuff like that. There are all sorts of different characteristics that you've got to learn how to make, and this is where the main complexity of the game comes in, because once you learn how to make one of those compounds, you have to establish sort of a supply line for it, knowing where to get the essences that you need to combine together to actually make that compound in the first place. And so you may pre-bake some combined essences that you can then combine later with other stuff in order to make some of the more complex stuff. That way you have just a list of essences at home waiting, and you don't have to start from scratch every time you need a certain kind of advanced material. You know, you may go out of your way to harvest several of a specific thing, turn it into essence, combine those essences maybe 2 or 3 times into specific compounds, and then keep those compounds on hand. That way you have all of those steps already done, so that if you need more of that particular stone or something for a recipe later, you can just grab your essence and get it. And this is what you'll be doing for the whole game. You'll be establishing these supply lines, learning what essences combine with what other ones to form which compounds that have which characteristics, and noting them all down in your journal so that you can refer back to them more easily later. You'll be finding various different mushroom people who are all super adorable and solving some side quests for them, as well as, of course, the main quest of restoring this observatory so that you can use all of its functions in order to find and make the cure. And all of the complexity comes from the sort of puzzle game style complexity of how you have to solve all these problems needing various different materials and compounds and how you have to go and make them. So it's a simple setup, but it gradually gets more complex as it adds more and more steps to how you have to craft all the things that you find. Overall, I'd say it's a pretty solid puzzle game because it gets a lot out of its core mechanic. This sort of puzzle alchemy mechanic is used very well. It's a relatively short game, probably around like 6 to 10 hours, depending on how much of the side stuff you do, but I think that's probably a fair length because during that runtime, it gets pretty much everything it can out of this mechanic, out of its puzzle systems. It explores them in every direction and makes them as complex as I think it can without becoming repetitive or unnecessarily obtuse or anything. So it ends up being a chill, cozy little game with a very cute art style and these adorable mushroom people to work with, and for all of that, I think I would easily recommend it. So I'll put the link to the Steam store page for The Last Alchemist in the description below this video. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.